Extinct in the records for centuries, the galaxy believed humans were gone forever. History books spoke of them as a violent race, clever but reckless, a people who burned too brightly and destroyed themselves. Alien scholars described humanity as a warning, a lesson that even the strongest could fall. Children in schools learned that humans were only a footnote in galactic history, a tragic story of extinction. The records were clear. No colonies, no fleets, no homeworld. Humans were dust scattered across time. Their name became more myth than memory. Some even doubted they had ever truly existed. Extinct, the teachers said, lost to history, but not everyone was convinced. On the far edge of the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Strange signals, broken transmissions, shadows moving where no ships should be. Traders told stories of enormous black vessels gliding through the void. Scouts reported that sensors sometimes picked up shapes too large to be natural, yet every time the evidence vanished, lost in static, erased by silence. Most dismissed the rumors. Ghost stories, commanders said. Old myths to scare the young. But one officer, stationed at a lonely border outpost, could not laugh. His name was Rylan, and his duty was to scan the skies for intruders. Night after night he sat in his chair, staring at empty space. The job was boring. Nothing ever happened. Until one night something did. His scanners picked up a signal. At first he thought it was a mistake, static, maybe a glitch. But the signal grew stronger, clearer. Symbols began to appear across his screen, patterns no one had seen in centuries. His heart pounded as he checked the archives. The match was undeniable. The symbols were human. For a long moment, Raylan could not move. His breath caught in his throat. He knew the stories, the old legends of a race that fought with fire in their spirit. He remembered the warnings told in military training. If humans had survived, they said, they would have been unstoppable. And now, staring at his screen, Raylan wondered if that warning was about to come true. He sent his report to command at once. The answer came quickly, sharp and dismissive. Ignore it. False reading. No such thing as humans. His superiors laughed at him, calling him a fool, chasing shadows. They told him to clear his logs and focus on real threats, but Raylan could not ignore what he saw. The next night, his scanners lit up again. This time, it was not just symbols. A shape appeared, a massive object drifting at the edge of the system. At first he thought it was an asteroid, but the lines were too straight, too sharp. This was no rock. It was metal. It was a ship. His hands shook as he increased the magnification. The details emerged slowly, cold steel, burning engines, markings across the hull. It was old, yet alive. And though he had never seen one before, Raylan knew exactly what it was, a human warship. The officer froze in terror. His training told him to sound the alarm, but fear held him still. The warship drifted closer, silent, heavy, unstoppable. And then, as if the void itself wanted to mock him, more shadows appeared. One ship, then two, then five. A fleet, rising, from the dark like ghosts returning from the grave. Raylan finally broke free from his shock. He screamed into the comms, sending warnings across every channel. They're here, the humans, they're real. But once again, command dismissed him. Impossible, they said. You are seeing tricks of light. His voice cracked, as he begged them to believe. No one did. The fleet moved past his station without a word. No message, no sound. Only the heavy silence of engines cutting through the void. For hours after they vanished, Raylan sat frozen, staring at the empty screen, his body trembling. He knew what he had seen. Humanity was not extinct. Humanity had returned. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, life continued as normal. In the halls of power, leaders boasted of strength and control. In schools, children laughed at the silly stories of ancient humans. In military councils, officers drank and joked about ghost fleets. No one believed the myth. No one believed the warnings. But the myth was no longer a myth. Raylan's report was buried, locked away in classified archives, dismissed as nonsense. Yet whispers spread from trader to trader, from scout to scout. A strange unease began to grow in the outer colonies. Too many sightings. Too many shadows. Something was moving in the dark, and it was getting closer. On the surface of distant worlds, citizens looked up at the night sky and wondered, could the stories be true? Could the extinct race have survived? And if they had, what had they become? No one had the answers. But one thing was certain. Something had returned to the galaxy. Something vast. Something powerful. And soon, the galaxy would learn the truth. Humans were not extinct. They had only been waiting. The sky darkens. The warning was ignored. Raylan's desperate reports were buried in archives, locked away as sensor malfunctions. His commanders mocked him, and the Empire continued its life as if nothing had happened. But the sky does not hide its secrets forever. It began quietly. A trader passing through the frontier spoke of a shadow that swallowed the stars. He claimed his ship's sensors broke down when it passed near. No one believed him. Another freighter captain swore she saw a massive vessel hovering above a gas giant, its engines burning like white fire. She was laughed out of the council chambers. You saw a storm, they told her. Nothing more. But then, one colony after another reported the same thing. The sky above them turned black. At first it looked like a storm, a strange cloud, covering the stars. Then the truth revealed itself. Dozens of ships, colossal in size, drifting above their worlds. Their dark hulls blocked the light of suns. Their shadows stretched across entire cities. Citizens froze in silence as they looked up, their breath caught in their throats. It was not the sight of the ships alone that spread fear. It was their silence. They made no demands. They gave no warnings. They simply hovered above the colonies, watching. The Zalari Empire sent patrol fleets to investigate. Proud commanders swore they would bring back proof. We will expose these myths, they said. Their fleets launched with songs of victory. None returned. The outposts received only fragments of their last transmissions, screams, static, and the single word no one wanted to hear. Humans. Still, the leaders refused to believe. Propaganda, they declared. Rebels spreading lies. But the soldiers on the frontier knew better. They had seen the sky turn dark. They had watched shadows move where no shadows should be. Fear grew in their eyes. On the colony of Neroth, the people gathered in the streets as the sky filled with massive warships. Children clutched their parents' hands. Old veterans trembled. The mayor of the colony sent desperate messages to the Empire, begging for orders. None came. The Empire did not know what to do. And then, without warning, one of the warships moved. It descended slowly, drifting over the colony like a mountain of steel. Its engines hummed with power, shaking the ground below. Alarms blared as defense. Forces scrambled, but their weapons felt like toys against such giants. The warship did not fire. It did not attack. It simply hovered, silent and cold, as if reminding the world that it could end them at any second. For 3 days, the human fleet remained above Neroth, unmoving, blocking out the stars. The people lived in terror, waiting for destruction that never came. And then, just as silently as it had arrived, the fleet vanished back into the void, leaving only questions and fear. The story spread like fire. Every colony whispered of the ships that could blot out the sky. Merchants abandoned the frontier. Soldiers deserted their posts. No one wanted to be the first to face the return of humanity. Meanwhile, in the great halls of power, the high councils argued. Some shouted for war, others demanded surrender. But none could agree. Their pride blinded them. They still called humans ghosts. They still believed they could not be real. Yet in the outer colonies, no one doubted anymore. They had looked up at the sky and seen the truth. The myth was alive. On one mining world, an old worker told his grandson, "The stories are true. The humans are back." His voice shook as he pointed to the horizon, where the sky still glowed faintly from the engines of the vanished fleet. And they are watching. The galaxy had thought humans were extinct, but extinction does not blot out the sky. Extinction does not move in silence with fleets large enough to cover suns. Only power could do that. Only patience. Only vengeance. The officers at the borders began to whisper to each other, passing warnings in secret. They do not speak, they do not ask. They only arrive. One of them, remembering the old records, whispered the words like a curse. This is not war. This is a return. And as the days passed, the sightings grew. More colonies looked up and saw their skies vanish under dark hulls. More fleets disappeared into silence. And across the stars an unshakable truth spread from world to world. The humans were not gone. The humans had come back, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The return of fire. The galaxy had seen war before, rebellions, empire clashes, border skirmishes, but nothing compared to what was coming. Until now, the human fleets had been silent watchers, shadows blotting out the sky. They had not fired. They had not spoken. Their silence was its own weapon, filling every heart with dread. But silence cannot last forever. The first spark came at the border world of Karos. The Zalari Empire sent a grand fleet, 70 warships, carriers, destroyers, cruisers, all armed with the latest weapons. Their commanders stood proud, convinced that myths could not fight. "We will crush this ghost fleet," they declared, "and show the galaxy that humans are truly extinct." When the Zalari fleet arrived, they found the human ships waiting. Dozens of black warships hung in space, unmoving, their hulls cold and sharp against the starlight. For a long moment, neither side moved. The void was still. Then the Zalari commander gave the order, "Attack." The sky exploded. Beams of energy and torpedoes lit the darkness. 70 ships fired at once, their combined power shaking the system itself. But when the fire cleared, the human fleet remained. Their shields absorbed the storm like it was nothing more than rain. Not a single ship had fallen. Then the humans answered. Their warships unleashed weapons no one in the galaxy had ever seen. Beams of pure light cut through cruisers in a single strike. Missiles tore apart destroyers with surgical precision. Every shot found its mark. There was no waste, no panic, no hesitation. Only cold, perfect destruction. Within minutes, half the Zalari fleet was gone. Explosions lit the void. Wrecks drifted lifelessly and survivors screamed into the comms. The commander shouted for retreat, but retreat was impossible. Human ships moved faster, sharper, like predators closing on prey. Every escape path was blocked, every signal jammed. In less than 1 hour, the proud fleet of 70 ships was gone. Only burning fragments remained, floating like broken bones in the dark. The survivors, what few there were, spoke with broken voices when they reached the Empire. They said the humans did not fight like other species. They fought with silence, with precision, with purpose. There were no wasted shots, no desperate maneuvers. It was as if they had trained for centuries for this exact moment. The galaxy trembled. News of the battle spread faster than light. Colonies panicked. Armies froze. Leaders who had once mocked the human myth now sat in silence, their hands shaking. The story of Karos was retold in every tavern, every council chamber, every home. One sentence echoed again and again. They cannot be stopped. But worse than the destruction was the message the humans left behind. On the shattered remains of a Zalari battleship, glowing symbols were carved into the metal. The words were short, sharp, and filled with weight. We remember. That phrase spread across the galaxy like fire. What did the humans remember? Old wars, old betrayals, the extinction others claimed they suffered? No one knew, but everyone feared the answer. The humans did not chase glory. They did not broadcast their victory. They did not boast. Their fleet moved on in silence, leaving only wreckage and fear in their wake. And the silence screamed louder than any words. On distant worlds, Children stopped laughing at the old stories. Parents whispered to each other in the night, afraid their colony would be next. Soldiers who had once stood tall now stared at the sky with haunted eyes. Even smugglers, the bravest of the brave, abandoned entire trade routes, unwilling to risk crossing paths with the myth made real. The galaxy finally understood the truth. Humanity had not gone extinct. They had survived in the shadows, and they had returned stronger, faster, and more ruthless than ever before. In the great capital of the Varn Dominion, leaders argued through the night. "We must unite," one shouted. "No," another hissed. "We must surrender before they destroy us." But no decision could stop the tide. Their voices were empty against the reality of human warships blotting out suns. The return of fire had changed everything. The Zalari Empire, once feared across the stars, was broken in a single battle. Other empires looked at their fleets and realized they were useless. No weapon they had could match human precision. No shield could withstand their fury. The galaxy had forgotten humanity. But humanity had not forgotten the galaxy. And now, as their fleets advanced system by system, everyone asked the same question. If humans had survived extinction, if they had rebuilt in secret, what else had they done in the dark? No one had the answer. But one truth was clear. The humans were not ghosts. They were not myths. They were fire returned to the stars, and the galaxy was burning. Fear. Across the stars, fear spread faster than light. It did not need ships or armies. It needed only whispers. And now, the whispers of humanity's return haunted every star. In the Zalari capital, the council chambers were silent. Leaders who once laughed at human myths now sat with pale faces, staring at reports they did not want to read. Entire fleets gone, colonies in panic, soldiers deserting, trade routes collapsing. Their empire was powerful, but power meant nothing against shadows that could blot out the sky. The words we remember glowed in their minds like fire. What did the humans remember? The old wars? The betrayals of the past? No one knew. But the fear of that memory was worse than any weapon. In the colonies, the fear was different. Ordinary people looked up at the night sky and saw ghosts. Farmers stopped working their fields. Merchants refused to send ships into space. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. Are the humans coming here? Will they destroy us? No parent had the courage to lie. Soldiers were no better. They polished their weapons, but their eyes betrayed them. They had seen the recordings. The dark warships moving like predators, the fleets shattered in minutes. Their commanders told them to stand strong, but courage had drained from the galaxy like water from a broken cup. One outer colony tried to resist. The governor rallied the people, swearing they would not bow. "We will fight," he cried. "We will show these ghosts that we are not afraid." His words filled the people with hope for one day. But when the human fleet appeared above their skies, blotting out the sun, the hope died. The warships did not fire. They hovered in silence, their shadows covering cities, their engines rumbling like distant thunder. The people froze, waiting for destruction that never came. The governor, who had shouted defiance, dropped to his knees. His voice shook as he whispered, "We cannot fight this." After 3 days, the ships vanished into the void. The colony remained untouched, yet it was broken. The people no longer needed destruction. They carried fear in their hearts forever. That was the true weapon of humanity. Not fire, not steel. Fear. Across the stars, strange tales grew. A freighter captain swore he saw human soldiers boarding an abandoned station, tall figures in black armor, their helmets glowing like fire. Another claimed human ships could vanish into the dark, invisible to scanners. Others whispered that humans could not die, that they had become something more than flesh and blood. The myths multiplied and no one tried to stop them. The galaxy wanted to believe, because belief made the fear stronger, and the humans wanted the galaxy to fear. Even great empires began to fracture. The Varn Dominion, once united, split apart in rage and panic. Some demanded alliances to fight the humans. Others demanded surrender before it was too late. Trust vanished. Leaders shouted, armies marched, but all of it was empty. For every empire knew the truth. Against humanity, they were powerless. One by one, borders collapsed. Systems surrendered without a fight. Fleets refused to launch. The humans did not even need to conquer. Fear conquered for them. And through it all, the humans remained silent. They did not send diplomats. They did not demand tribute. They did not explain themselves. They only appeared, destroyed fleets, and moved on. Silence was their voice, and the silence was louder than any scream. In the academies, teachers no longer mocked human history. They whispered it like a warning, forcing students to memorize every fragment. In taverns, old soldiers spoke of humans, with shaking hands. In homes, parents told their children to behave or the humans will come. The myth had become the nightmare of the galaxy. In the hidden corners of space, 3 great empires gathered in secret. Their rulers met in the dark, their voices filled with fear. "We must unite," one said, "or we will all fall." Another shook his head. "We cannot trust each other. Humanity has already won. We just do not know it yet." Their meeting ended in silence. Even together, they knew they could not stop the storm. Humanity had returned, and fear was tearing the galaxy apart from the inside. Back in his lonely outpost, Rylan, the officer who had first seen the warships, sat in his cell. The guards no longer mocked him. They avoided his eyes, whispering, rumors of more colonies falling, of more fleets destroyed. He stared at the wall, knowing the truth the galaxy had only begun to learn. Humans were not extinct. They had only been waiting. And now, across every star, the galaxy trembled beneath their return. Humanity's message, the galaxy held its breath. The fear had spread everywhere, and now even the strongest empires sat in silence, waiting for the storm to break. They had seen fleets shattered, skies darkened, and worlds brought to their knees, without a single word spoken. The humans had returned, but their silence was more terrifying than war itself. And then at last, the silence ended. It began on the old trade channels. A signal, steady and strong, filled every receiver at once. At first, it was only static. Then a voice spoke. It was deep, heavy, and carried a weight that felt older than empires. It spoke in every language at the same time, so that no one could escape its meaning. "We are human." The galaxy froze. On every planet, in every ship, across every star, life stopped to listen. "We are not extinct. You told your children we were gone. You wrote us out of history. You erased our name. But we endured." The words fell like thunder. In the capital halls of the great empires, leaders sat pale and trembling. In the colonies, people covered their mouths, whispering the words again and again. Soldiers stood at attention, fear burning in their eyes. The voice continued. "You thought extinction had claimed us, but we were not destroyed. We were not lost. We were preparing, watching, waiting. And now, we have returned." The message spread through the stars. It appeared on broken satellites glowing across dead battlefields. It was carved into the ruins of stations, broadcast from wrecks that floated lifeless in the void. There was no escape. Humanity's voice reached every world, every ship, every ear. But the message grew darker. "We remember." Those 2 words made the galaxy shiver. Every empire asked the same question. What did they remember? Old wars? Old betrayals? The centuries of silence? When the galaxy laughed at their name? No one knew, but everyone feared the answer. The voice did not explain. It did not need to. "We do not ask for your permission. We do not ask for your mercy. We ask only this. Remember us. Remember that humanity does not die. Remember that humanity does not bow. Remember that we are not shadows, not myths, not extinct. We are here. And the stars are ours as much as they are yours." The words echoed in the silence. Across the galaxy, millions wept. Others dropped to their knees. Leaders who once mocked the myth now whispered prayers, begging to be spared, Fleets powered down their weapons, too afraid to fire. Even the bravest soldiers dared not move. And then came the final words. Resist us and we will break you. Bow and we will ignore you. But no matter what you do, you will remember us. The signal ended. The silence returned. But this silence was different. It was not the silence of waiting. It was the silence of domination. Above countless worlds, the human fleets remained in orbit. They did not fire. They did not move. They simply watched, like predators reminding their prey who ruled the stars. Every colony, every empire, every council knew the truth. They had no power. They could not fight. They could not resist. The humans had already won. In the Zalari capital, the High Council collapsed. Senators fled, generals abandoned their posts, citizens filled the streets in panic. The Empire had been the first to face the return of humanity, and now it would be the Giza first to fall. Their worlds were broken not by fire but by fear. In the taverns of the outer colonies, old veterans whispered, "The myth is alive." In academies, teachers rewrote history books. Parents held their children close, telling them never to forget the name that had been buried for centuries: humans. The young officer Raylan, who had first seen the fleet, stood outside his cell at last. The guards released him, ashamed of their mockery. He looked up at the sky where a massive human warship floated silently above his world. The light of its engines burned cold across the horizon. He whispered to himself, "They are not gone. They never were. They are the masters of the stars." Across the galaxy, billions whispered the same truth. The humans were not extinct. They had never been extinct. They had only been waiting. And now, their message had been delivered. We are back. We are not a myth. We are human. And as the fleets spread across the stars, blotting out suns and casting worlds into shadow, the galaxy understood the final truth. The myth had returned. The nightmare was real. And the future belonged to humanity.